I'd like to call to order the regular meeting for Thursday, April 19th, 2018. I'd like to remind everyone to silence their phones. If you have any blue slips, please fill those out and have those to Miss Jessica before the item comes up, please. We have our invocation and pledge of allegiance by Mr. McMillan.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for the grace you pour out upon us. We'll ask a special blessing on our meeting tonight. We ask that you give us wisdom to make the right decisions. We ask a special blessing for the Bush family and the loss of the First Lady, Barbara Bush. We ask a special blessing on all our troops, both deployed and here at home. Lord, protect us and guide us, and let us lead in your will. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Say the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Yes, sir. Mr. Upshaw? Mr. Endicott? Here. Mr. Gray?
Here.
Mr. Collins?
Here.
Mr. Farnum?
Here.
Mr. Gidry?
Here.
Mr. Guillory?
Here.
Mr. Landry?
Here.
Mr. Mature? Ms. Mayo? Here. Mr. McMillan?
Here.
Mr. Scott?
Here.
Mrs. Trimmie? Here. Vice President White?
Here.
And President Barris.
Thank you. Item number 4, appearance by Mr. Larry Rader, candidate for United States Congress, 3rd Congressional District. Good evening, Mr. Rader. Would you state your name and your address, please?
Good afternoon. My name is Larry Rader. I'm from New Iberia, Louisiana, 214 Canaglow Drive, New Iberia. I am a candidate for U.S. Congress for the 3rd Congressional District. For many of you, this is my second time seeing you. I ran during that last congressional race. We came out a strong 3rd. So we're going at it again. We got knocked down, but we didn't get knocked out, right? So we want to talk a little bit about some of the things we hope to accomplish if we're successful in our congressional run this time around. One of the things extremely important in the 3rd Congressional District, which runs from Morgan City, goes all the way to St. Landry. If you go east, you go all the way towards Henderson. Coming this way, you go all the way towards the Texas line. In a lot of those areas, and I know you guys are doing extremely well, congratulations on how you all have done financially. You've got your house in order. But parts of the other district is not doing this quite as well as what you guys are doing. So one of the things I propose to do as a 3rd Congressional District Congressman is to diversify our economy. And the way I would do that is with green energy. We'll start off by placing solar panels on the top of elderly people's homes. We will utilize the judicial system and have those individuals that are incarcerated make those panels, and that way it will be extremely cheap. A lot of the elderly people are making a decision between buying food, buying medicine, and paying their light bill. I think we could help them with that, regardless of where you are. So that's one of the things. Of course, it's a lot bigger than that, because once you get the judicial system involved, then, you know, when those guys are released from incarceration, they will have a job, a good paying job between $80,000 to $70,000 a year available to them when they get out. So they are going to help by stimulating the economy by working, paying taxes, and putting money back into the system rather than parishes paying for them to be in the system. So that's the first thing. The next thing I also support, and like I said, I'm a small business person from New Iberia. I also support a high minimum wage, somewhere in the neighborhood of $14 an hour, which I think will stimulate the economy as well. Affordable health care. A lot of the hospitals in my area, in the Lafayette area, are struggling. And they're struggling because right now we don't really have an affordable health care system available to them. But yet and still, when they go to the hospital, they still have to receive services. Somebody is paying for that service. Who is paying for it? 9 times out of 10, guess what? We are. We are paying for it. And what's going to happen is eventually those hospitals will close. We're the only nation in the civilized world that are allowing people to go bankrupt because of health care. It's not right. I don't approve of it, and hopefully when I get to Congress, I got some pretty good ideas. I think we can do something about that. I also support an affordable college education. Now, some individuals that are attending college, when they finish after their 4-year hitches up, they are paying more on their college education than you and I would pay on a mortgage. And that's unheard of. That's not fair. We should find a way to work with them. Last but not least, I want to talk a little bit about mental health. I talked about it the last time I ran. I'm going to talk about it again. I still think it's something that's needed. On a national basis, it's needed. The incident that happened in Florida with the AR-15, you know, there's a lot of talk about using tactical officers in our schools. I don't agree with that. I think we should spend time and get mental health counselors in our schools from grade 1 through grade 12. Where those individuals, when they have problems, those young kids, they'll have someone readily available that they can go and talk to. So that's my pitch. That's my 5 minutes of fame. I want to thank you guys for allowing me to speak this afternoon. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, some of you have my card. My cell number is on that card. Please feel free to give me a call. Unless you have any questions, that's it for me.
Good luck.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you,
sir.
Mr. President.
Item number 5, take appropriate action on applications for liquor and beer permits. Mr. Crane.
Mr. President, we have 4 applications before you tonight and recommend that they be approved.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Collins and a second by Mr. Guidry. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. Item 6, consideration of approving payment of all current invoices and advise regarding monthly budget to actual comparisons. We got a motion by Mr. Andrepont and a second by Mr. Abshire. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. Item 7, consideration of approving the minutes of the regular meeting of the police jury dated March 22nd, 2018. I got a motion by Mr. Guillory and a second by Mr. White. Any discussion? Any objection? Item carries. Item 8, take appropriate action on a request by J&A Investments of Southwest Louisiana LLC to rezone from agricultural to multifamily residential to allow residential development 7 duplexes at 6143 Mark LeBlue Road in Ward 8. The Planning and Zoning Board met on Tuesday, April 17, 2018, and voted 6-4 and 4 against to recommend that action on the request be deferred for 30 days.
They'll uphold planning and zoning to defer for 30 days.
I have a motion to uphold planning and zoning by Mr. Latour and a second by Mr. McMillan. We have any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. Item 9, take appropriate action on a request by Mary Augustus to rezone from agricultural to multifamily residential to allow residential development 4 duplexes in the 200 block of West Abear Road in Ward 3. The Planning and Zoning Board met on Tuesday, April 17, 2018, and voted 7-4 and 3 against to recommend that the request be granted with conditions. We got a discussion.
Discuss, right.
I'll second that.
I guess since Mr. Wainwright's not here, I'll just make my comment to Mr. Crane. On number 3, the stipulation, it says that a drainage impact analysis will be required unless appropriate waiver is granted by the Division of Engineering. My only concern with allowing this and expanding it with that many duplexes is I've had several calls about it encroaching on the drainage lateral right there. So all the work we've done to, get drainage better in this parish, I would just want to make sure that we don't just waive this one because it's too small or whatever. So make sure we take a good look at this whenever we're actually, I know it's conceptual right now, but
Yeah.
I just hope we don't have a duplex 15 foot from a drainage lateral. As long as there's some kind of access or whatever is my concern.
Right, we'll make sure we're taking a look at that and make sure that the gravity drainage is also involved to make sure that it's not encroaching too much on there.
All right, with that, I'll move to uphold planning and zoning.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to uphold planning and zoning by Mr. Scott and a second by Ms. Trimmy. Any further discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. Item 10, take appropriate action on a request by James Wiggins et al. To rezone from single-family residential to mixed residential to allow residential development duplex at 4509 Ogden Road in Ward 3.
Move to overturn planning and zoning.
The Planning and Zoning Board met on Tuesday, April 17, 2018, and voted 9 for and 1 against to recommend that the request be granted with conditions. I have a motion to overturn planning and zoning by Mr. Brame and a second by Mr. Landry. Any discussion? Mr. Brame.
Thank you, Mr. President. I guess the reason that I overturned the planning and zoning is I've spent a lot of time out there the last several days, and the neighborhood has a lot of, it's got a lot of aesthetics. It's really a nice neighborhood. It's a nice street. It's a quiet street. There's a lot of children that ride their bikes up and down the street. The oak trees on this particular piece of property are, I'm just saying, I guess they're over 100 years old. It's just a beautiful piece of property. Everything around there is single-family housing in that particular block of Ogden. I can understand why the applicant wants to do what he wants to do, and it's kind of a good thing. I just don't think that this is the right piece of property to do it on. I also feel like that, you know, the residents that live there, they live a quiet life, it is a quiet neighborhood, and I just want to honor that for them. They don't want it there, and that's who I represent, and that's the stance that I've taken to the reason why I've decided to overturn planning and zoning. And I also would like Mr. Crane, if I could call on Mr. Crane, and just explain some of the reasons why on the accessory building and so forth like that.
Mr. Crane?
Yes, sir. Actually, when Mr. Brame and I drove out there and looked at the property, and there was made mention at the Planning and Zoning Board meeting that there were actually 2 dwelling units on this property, which we were not aware of at the time, but there is in the rear of this property, a second dwelling. However, we were not able to find any permits or anything for that particular dwelling. And even the tax assessor record only has it on this piece of property as there being 1 dwelling on this piece of property. So, you know, that, I don't know if that changed or may have swayed the decision of the Planning and Zoning Board, but as far as my review of it and what I'm looking at, you know, there's actually 1 legal dwelling on this property, and that's why I recommended to deny, because it is the majority of these this street, they are single-family homes. So that was my reason.
Thank you, Mr. Crane. Mr. Brame?
And that's one thing I wanted to mention also. Staff originally denied the request, and they actually, I mean, not that they don't get it right all the time, but you absolutely got it right this time. And so I just wanted to mention that. You just mentioned it, but I wanted to mention that as well. And I'm done. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Landry?
Who doesn't get it right all the time?
No,
I missed that part.
I said I didn't say that they didn't get it right.
Oh, we was talking about planning and zoning, I just wasn't sure who he was talking about. I'm gonna leave that alone for right now. I also went out there, and what is being asked of us is not consistent with the neighborhood. So you nailed it. I'm with you.
Yes, sir.
I'm not always with you, but I agree with you on
Yes,
this
sir.
one. You know, and I've got some areas out in my district where that same type of stuff has happened, and it's just, I'm telling you, it's a mistake. It should never happen. Just needs to be left alone. And yeah, please make a note, you need to go condemn both of those structures. That's a crack house waiting to happen. It's open to the public. At least one of the structures ate up with termites, but they need to be torn down, regardless of what happens here tonight. But there's no way, that's just not the spot to put a duplex. It's not. I'm good for now, but I'll reserve, I may come back.
Thank you, Mr. Landry. Mr. Guidry.
Thank you, Mr. President. Is the applicant here tonight?
My name is Robin Bissoni, 1010 Lakeland Drive, Lake Charles, Louisiana, 70605. I'm representing the applicant, Mr. Justin Granger, who has is hoping to buy this property from Mr. Wiggins. So he is proposing the duplex. We're just asking for one duplex. We understand, and we've seen the northern end of the street is single-family residence, and they're kept up really nice landscaping and very clean. A quarter of a mile south, 1,240 feet, in the city limits, but Ogden Road from Ogden to Isles will be a 43-unit apartment complex. That's been approved and it's coming. We're just asking for the one duplex. Mr. Wiggins has had a catastrophic health event, and he is not able to maintain this property. So putting a condemnation on those would be a hardship. But if Mr. Granger is able to purchase, he will tear down those buildings and build the new red brick, or the new brick duplex that you see in your drawing.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Mr. Brink?
Ms. Bissoni, you're right about that, a quarter mile down further south on Ogden. But that block of Ogden that the duplex wants to be put on, that's not the right block to put the duplex on, in my opinion.
I understand.
If they want to, I think there's other pieces of property on maybe in the other block that I think some of them, if I'm not mistaken, are already zoned R2 for duplexes.
That's correct.
In that block further south.
That's correct.
But that particular piece is just, in my opinion, is just not the piece for the duplex because of the aesthetics of that one block.
It is surrounded on two sides by commercial properties. And that property to the north is that metal building. It's very
is.
rusted and not good condition
I
either.
understand that. I know that.
Mr. Landry?
It's my turn again.
Sure is.
Yeah, there is a building there, which that's another mistake, because that shouldn't be commercial. I'm assuming from the looks of that building, it was probably grandfathered in, probably prior to 1980, whatever year it was, 82 or what have you. So I really doubt that this jury voted that as being commercial. We just ended up with that as being commercial before there was zoning. Is that correct, Mr. Crane?
Yes, sir, I believe so. That was never, that was there during, before comprehensive zoning.
There we go. Okay. A quarter of a mile down the road, yeah, we're in the city of Lake Charles. Believe me, they turn their backs on the city, the citizens of this city every month. One apartment complex after another where it shouldn't go. And so if you have any doubt how to vote, being that they're doing apartment complex and you want to do the opposite of what they're doing, that would be the right thing. Thank you.
Mr. McMillan?
Yeah, I did get a couple calls on this saying they would like to see this built. And Wes, I guess my question would be to Wes, Mr. President, if it's okay. You voted to deny it. The zoning board voted 9-1 to recommend it. What was said? What was said at that meeting that I didn't get to be at, that I didn't see, that really changed the dynamics for them to go against you denying it? What was?
Well, I don't know all the, I'm not sure what each of them are thinking, but there was made mention that there were 2 units on this piece of property. And I don't know if that swayed them or not. And so we didn't have that in our initial investigation of it, that there were 2 units. And I did go out there and verify that yes, there's a building in the rear of the primary residence there that it appears to have been used as a residential unit at one time, but we have no record of it being permitted or anything. And so, and plus, the health unit, I had my staff check with them. There's a 500-gallon system for this particular tract of land here, which is typically for one residential dwelling. I guess it could be used for multiple, but And then the other fact is that the tax assessor only listed as being assessed as one residential home on this property. So that's our facts that we're looking at.
And if I could, Mr. President, Ms. Bissoni, in the same question to you, what did you say the other night that convinced 9 zoning board people to overturn Mr. Crane?
I certainly don't think it was anything I said. I wish that my words could evoke such great emotion. I think it's important to know that one half of the duplex will be occupied by the owner. And I think it was because it was one duplex, and I think it's because, well, one zoning board actually told me that it was because it's surrounded by commercial. That kind of swayed him. So it's the corner and it's near commercial. And it's one duplex that will definitely improve what's on that lot now.
Yeah, and still kind of having the floor. It's hard to go against staff's denial, but the 9-1 is kind of a different thing. But then when you have a police juror in that district that's against it, that's another thing that kind of weighs in when we're having to make our decisions. So it makes it tough for us up here.
Trust me, I understand.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Mr. Brain.
And Ms. Bissoni, it's not, I know you know, it's one duplex, and I know Dustin's gonna live in one and rent out the other one, okay? You mentioned the city quarter mile, the next block over. I know all that. And the city is 1 block north. In a year from now, if the city comes in and annexes that area, I'm not saying this is what he's gonna do, but he could go to the city of Lake Charles and build 2 more, maybe 3 more duplexes and stack them. That's what I don't wanna happen to the people. The issue of one duplex and him living in it and renting out the other one, I don't have a problem with, except for that oak tree. That's so beautiful that he had to cut down, but my issue is I look a year down the road, 2 years down the road, 3 years down the road to where it will get annexed and the city will allow them to do it, no questions asked. And I don't want that for that neighborhood. The people don't want it for that neighborhood. Not saying that's gonna happen, it's very highly likely that will happen. And that's what I don't want. And I guess I wanted to explain that. That's something I left out. As far as surrounded by commercial property, it's only commercial property on the north of that piece. And I don't understand, and I guess just me, that piece of property is so beautiful, I don't know why it's being marketed as a single family piece of property to build a home on it. I don't know, do you?
I don't.
You don't, okay.
When a realtor lists the property, they hope for a buyer.
Right.
This is what
I don't know,
we've got.
I don't know if it's appropriate for me to ask what the property's selling for. Is that appropriate for me to ask?
I'm not even privy to that, so I couldn't answer that.
Okay,
question.
well, it doesn't matter. I guess it's for my own peace of mind. Well, thank you, though.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
President.
you, sir. Mr. Landry?
I'm all right.
Your turn again.
Is it? I hate to miss my turn.
Mr. Farnum?
Thank you, Mr. President. I guess one thing that's making me look at it is that even though it's commercial on the, on one side, it's not accessible from that street. It doesn't appear. I've never been there, but it looks like the commercial property is not accessible from that neighborhood. It looks like it kind of backs up to the street, and nobody really up and down that street is going into the commercial property at all. So, you know, and a duplex is a piece of basically commercial. In my eyes, it's rental property, it's commercial property, the way I look at it. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Farnum. Mr. Guidry?
I can totally respect Mr. Brain's position in this because we all, as jurors, go through this sometimes when we have these situations in our district. But I have a little bit of a heartburn in looking at the vote to go back at what Mr. McMillan said with the planning and zoning voting 9-1. I don't know what they
They probably don't know what they do.
I'm having a hard time looking at that vote
I make a motion to dissolve, baby.
and understand what took place that night.
Would it be okay, Mr. President, if I show some pictures that the listing agent had provided?
Yes, please,
I have
I would like to see them.
Mr. Guidry says it's okay.
Well, you have a right to look at it, you know.
He's a new sheriff in town.
I did hold that seat a year ago, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm warming it now, sir.
You're doing a good job, sir. too.
He's got roots in it right now, baby.
Come on, what you just
Good excuse.
You won't have to take your pictures for your condemnation. That'll save you a trip.
Mr. President, can I make one comment? Does anybody have the floor?
You have the floor, sir.
Again, I just want to say that the applicant, I understand what he wants to do. This isn't a personal, I happen to know the applicants, and it's not a personal thing for me. It's just I'm going back to the aesthetics of the neighborhood and the people that live there that don't want it. And I guess I just wanted to make that clear, because I know that they're here tonight. Just wanted to let them know that it's not a personal, it's nothing personal. It's just my job and what I do. So with that said, I yield back, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Brain. Mr. Landry.
Thank you, Mr. President. Of course, the first picture shows the warehouse that, as we all know, we never voted to put that there. That's been there forever. I wish we could condemn that personally. I don't know what it is, but it looks terrible. They did cut the grass, I'll give it, but besides that. And yeah, does this look bad? Sure it does. Looks horrible. The houses around it do not look like this, I assure you, not at all. That's why this should be condemned. This should have already been condemned, actually. So, yeah, this shows you it's in bad shape. This is all what I saw this morning, just like what I just told you. Yeah, we need to get rid of those.
We're talking about the rezone,
Condemning, exactly, and condemning it will make it look better. We don't have to rezone it and allow a duplex to make it look better. A duplex will not be consistent with the surrounding neighborhood. And you know, I will agree it's a benefit of the owner of the project is gonna live there. How long, I mean, come on, listen, I think it's a young man, or rather, Oprah, they're not gonna stay there forever. They're gonna live there for a while. At some point, it's a piece of rental property. It's an investment, it's something to make money off of. They're either gonna go build another one, live in another one, or maybe build some more and build a house or whatever. That person's not gonna stay there forever, nor can we ask them to. It's just the wrong place. It just doesn't, it's not consistent with the neighborhood.
Thank you, Mr. Landry.
Thank you, Mr. President.
I'm just gonna wait from now on, just tell you thank you at the end. Okay, we've got 2 comment cards. We've got, one for the motion. Bo Huddle. State your name and address, please, for the record.
Bo Huddle, 4712 River Ridge, Lake Charles, Louisiana. I represent the sellers in connection with this piece of property. And, you know, I respect that the neighbors there are resisting change. I can respect that in every neighborhood. But this gentleman, you ask what he's paying for it, is paying $90,000 for this lot. He's going to demolish the unsightly things that need to be torn down, and it's going to improve the neighborhood. It's, you know, exactly what he's going to do. He's going to live in part of it. He's going to be a good neighbor. He's going to be somebody who is concerned about his neighborhood. If I remember when I was a kid and I was growing up, my grandmother had a dilapidated old house, on up the road. It was a nice little neighborhood just like this. Well, that dilapidated house is where we used to go sneak, my cousins and I, to smoke. This is kind of what could happen with this home. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. You also ask about the second home in the back. Well, it wasn't voted in. It doesn't have a permit, and it used the sewer system that the front house did. It was a rental. So the neighborhood is used to having 2 rentals on this property.
Thank you. Mr. Brain?
Ms. Huddle, I may have been told wrong or was misinformed, but I believe it had been like 15 years, and maybe somebody in the audience can correct me if I'm wrong, that somebody has lived in the house, that back house, or whatever it is.
It's been 15 years since they have?
Since they have.
I don't know how long it has, but
Okay,
I know
well,
on more than one occasion.
It kind of sounds, and I'm just saying, it kind of sounds like maybe, recently there have been 2 rental houses on that, 2 houses on that piece of property that people have been living in. But obviously, the condition of the houses, that it's been a long time before anybody's lived there.
Well, it's not been that long. I know the front house had someone in it a couple years ago. The back house had a kitchen and a bathroom, so, whether, this is an old family home, as you know.
I know that, yes.
And
yes.
it's been there they've
And I know
owned this property for probably 50 years.
I know the Wiggins. I know Mr. Wiggins. He's a really fine man. And but going back to the house, the condition that it's in, and what I was told, it's been 15 years since somebody's lived in that house. I don't know if that's true. I was told that. And when I walked through the house, it looks like it's been 15 years. But anyway, that's my comment. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Brain. Thank you, Ms. Huddle. We've got one more against the motion, Ms. Judy Bradley.
Mr. President, just to clarify.
Please state your name and your address.
Against the rezoning, you mean? Because the motion is to overturn.
Okay, so
Just wanna clarify.
She's against the rezone.
Thank you.
My name's Judy Bradley. I reside at 4510 Ogden Road with my roommate Lynette Marcantel, directly across from the property that's being considered for rezoning for the duplex. And I am 67 years old. I'm a retired teacher and school counselor for Cashew Parish School Board, and I'm very nervous. I've never spoken at one of these, so excuse the crack in my voice. I'm really nervous. And I did write down what I wanted to say. I purchased my home and moved there in December of 1989. My house was one of them that y'all actually showed. So thank you for that. That's a great picture. This is my first and my last home that I plan to buy. I will live there until my time on earth is over. We have a very quiet neighborhood, and Ogden Road is a dead end. Retired and elderly people live in this neighborhood, as well as families with children of all ages. Families walk and ride bikes in the neighborhood, as well as do the children. Parents push baby buggies, and neighbors wave and visit along the way. We don't want this type of lifestyle to cease to exist. That could happen with a multiple dwelling and renters coming and going. Traffic and noise will certainly increase. There have been renters on that property in the past, and it wasn't a good experience for those of us that live there. please think about how you would feel if it were your elderly parents or your grandchildren living in our neighborhood. Would you want to worry about their peace of mind and their safety? Our way of life is important to us. We want to feel safe. We want to enjoy being in our yards and in our homes, especially for those of us who are in our forever home. We do not disagree with the sale of the property, but do disagree with multiple dwelling units being built in our neighborhood. Thank you for allowing me to speak to you on this issue.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have any further discussion? The motion was to overturn planning and zoning's decision by Mr. Brame and a second by Mr. Landry. We need a roll call vote. Please.
Yes, sir. Starting with the A's this time, Mr. Abshire.
Yes.
Excuse me just a second. Mr. Andrew
Yes.
Mr. Brain? Yes. Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Mr. Farnum?
Yes.
Mr. Guidry?
No.
Mr. Guillory?
Yes.
Mr. Landry?
Yes.
Mr. Latour?
Yes.
Ms. Mayo?
Yes.
Mr. McMillan?
Yes.
Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Mrs. Trimming?
No.
Mr. White?
No.
Okay, the motion carried 10 to 3. 11 to 3. So the planning and zoning board was overturned.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Item number 11, take appropriate action on a request by Harold Temple Jr. to rezone from agricultural to recreational vehicle park to allow a recreational vehicle park 6 spaces at 2142 Highway 109 South
Move to
in
overturn.
Ward 7. The Planning and Zoning Board met on
Stipulations.
Tuesday, April 17, 2018, and voted 4 for and 6 against to recommend that the request be denied. I have a motion to overturn Planning and Zoning by Mr. Landry and a second by Mr. Andrepont. Mr. Landry.
Can I clarify that motion? Can I add a stipulation to the motion right off the bat? Sure. Sure I can, right?
It is your original motion. You can still make that motion if you want to add a stipulation.
It's with, the stipulations that are listed as well as long as they apply. No, I don't want to say that because I don't agree with the fence. I agree with all the stipulations with the exception of the fence that I think we can discuss separately, but added the stipulation that the park be moved or the 6 units be moved from the front of the property to where they can't be seen. Because I think there's some acreage here, and if it was moved towards the back, no one would see it. And the man lives on this property. If that makes sense, Miss Kathy, kind of.
Glad you got it. Mr. Crane.
I have want clarification, and I don't know, maybe, I don't know what is in the rear of the property. I don't know whether he can
The
move
person,
those.
he lives there.
Huh?
The applicant lives on the property.
Is he here? That's him in the he's here.
I've been told that it could be moved to where it could, we can get him up here and ask him.
Mr. Barris, did Mr. Landry had a second on with his stipulation? I know he had a second on his original motion, but
Yes, he
I
had
will
a
give him
second by Mr. Andrepont.
stipulations also. I would have,
stipulation?
Yes. Because I would have.
Yes, Mr. Andrepont's second.
And if we may, Mr. President, have the applicant come up, tell us what he wants to do, and we can clarify some of this.
Will the applicant please come forward?
Right.
state your name and your address, please.
Harold Temple, 2148 Highway 109 South, Benton, Louisiana.
Thank you.
If I may, Mr. President, Mr. Temple, just not to confirm what I said is correct, you can move these units off the highway onto your property where they really won't be seen by the
Yes, sir. There's
neighbor.
acres up there.
Okay.
I have 38 and some change property.
And I think you indicated you were willing to do that
Oh,
as
yeah.
a compromise, and I
Yes,
know
sir.
you've gone out and you've gotten a number of people to sign a petition.
Yes, sir.
That, you know, they didn't have a problem with it, but I know you do have some nearby neighbors that decided they had a problem with it. Now, also the fence, 6-foot privacy fence must be installed along the north, south, and west property lines of the development, which I don't know. Whenever you move that, I mean, it's a lot of wooded property around there. I don't know that that's going to be necessary anymore.
Right. That's all virgin. To the south of it's all virgin timber. It's never been touched.
Where would you move this project?
I would have to stand up there. There's an old single wide, abandoned single wide that the Venton has went to 2 weeks ago. The Justice of Peace, Kevin Merchant, went and had it put to where I can tear it down. It needs to be tore down. It's abandoned. I had 2 abandoned trailer houses on the place. One was half burnt and one was just abandoned. And so the one where I was putting at the front, that's where the burnt one was. And
Which that's where the yellow square is.
yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. The to the back, go to the over a little bit. There's a little spot that's open. Okay, where can I go to show you?
Well, just to the right of the yellow square.
Yes, sir. See to the right here, there's a little metal shed right there. And yes, sir. And there's where the trailer house is right there. So I can take and go to this side of it. There was actually, sir.
Go ahead, podium.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We're not catching you on the record.
Okay, I'm sorry. There's a single wide there that needs to be tore down anyway, and I planned on whenever I cleaned up the front, I was gonna let him walk his dozer back there and just destroy it too, and he'd haul it off.
So once you do that, I mean, Mr. Crane, would you agree that if it's that far back on the piece of property that a fence may not be necessary?
See, that's a buffer zone. It shows at least 20 feet of woods on my property there.
Can I clarify something?
Certainly.
Okay. The yellow square is what is being rezoned.
Exactly.
And that's only 2.27 acres. If he has 10 acres, more than that, that's not what was considered. And that really can't be considered tonight because it's not been advertised.
So you couldn't move it?
Not,
I mean, it still remained the same size. It can't be moved on
Not-
the property.
we only advertised that 2.27 acres in the paper legally.
In the location that it shows to be
Correct.
in. Okay.
Yeah, if he's trying to move it further back, we need to either, he needs to make another application, or we need to defer action, so, you know, because to move it further back, that's not, and I'll defer to
No, I
Mr.
didn't realize that that's how it was advertised. Then,
I'll defer to our legal counsel.
then take that off of my,
Asking.
I don't think we want to start over. I don't know what kind of time frame you're operating in. And of course, I think the people that has signed his petition, nobody had a problem with it where it was. I mean, I was just thinking that as something extra to help the people that, of course, you know, that might not be the problem. They may just not want it anywhere on the property.
1 second.
Mr. McMillan? And I was going to come to the applicant and ask him, I mean, would 30 days make a difference? Do you need this to go ahead and be done tonight and be over with one way or another?
I would appreciate it, but I mean, I'm not gonna push, I'm grateful for anything, but, I mean, I've already got I've done did the sewer for there. I've done got the permit for the sewer. I've done got the state for Louisiana to do the well there. I had everything because, I mean, it is right off the road. And I spoke with everybody alongside of the road, right across the street from it. And and everybody signed my petition, except for the people that's to the further back, which there's, they were for it when I sat down on the porch for them, and next thing I know, I mean, I don't know what turned them, but,
And in reality, you could have asked for a lot more than just
oh,
six.
yes, sir. Yes, sir, I could.
Yeah.
I got.
So asking 6 was kind of a real compromise on your behalf.
That's what I said, surely they're not gonna have problems with six units.
Yeah. Thank you,
And
Mr.
I,
President.
and I plan on putting security cameras that go to my phone.
Oh, wait, one more follow-up, Mr. President, if I still have the floor. While we're going back to that same area, would you be okay with the fence?
On the west side, on, north and south, I'll have to cut that virgin timber down to
So you
get.
do have a buffer there on the other
yes,
side,
sir.
so that's, you're
Oh, yes,
inside
sir.
your property line.
Yes, sir. There's woods, as you see, it's all wooded.
Because we could just stipulate just the west side
Yes,
if
sir.
that was something.
And I went to the neighbor directly across the street, Mr. and Miss Walker, and before the sign even come up, because it is right there by them. And they said, we have no problem about it ever. Matter of fact, I went and talked to them today about it being turned down Tuesday, and they just couldn't believe it. They said, people that are against it, he signed a right-of-way for them to move their house, a right-of-way through his property, so they could put a house behind his house. He said, I can't believe they're doing this to you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. Andrew Pont.
Mr. President, may I address Mr. Landry for just a moment?
I know what you're gonna say, but go ahead. I'll
Well,
withdraw
for the
my,
record.
I'll withdraw my motion. We need to start over.
Then I'll withdraw my second.
It'd be so much cleaner. Now I'll make a new motion that,
Well, what I was gonna say is, it's on 109, and there's commerce on 109 anyway, and only one person really spoke against it.
I agree.
So I think I understand where you're coming from, and I think it's a nice gesture, but if we have to go through all the acrimony, starting all over again,
We don't wanna
that's
do
just not worth it, and then he's got to put up some more money, I'm sure, to take it from point A to point B, and,
I agree.
I don't know him, but I know you, and I know you're a fair person. Almost.
So can I change my motion? Sometimes. When we agree, I am. When we don't, then I'm not.
Hey, can I state this, please? I've lived in Mr. Dennis Scott's ward before, and he knows I'm pretty accurate about keeping my place up. My neighbors.
Gotcha. Thank you. Mr. Guidry.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm here with Mr. Landry saying and Mr. Andrew Point, but one thing we forgot, just a minute ago, Wes said legally we couldn't do this. Did I miss something?
Can't move it.
Yeah, we can't move it.
Can't move it.
We're not moving it.
We're not gonna move it.
Okay, okay. Just wanted to be clear on that because I heard two different things.
Welcome back to the meeting. Okay. Mr. Latour. Okay. Oh, no. You just waving. Okay. Might as well.
Okay. Well, I think, because now we don't have a motion on the floor, because I withdraw my motion, so we need to either have one to discuss, or I'm assuming that's correct.
We need a motion.
Right now,
I would-
there is a motion on the floor with
I
the
withdrew.
added stipulation.
Okay.
And we'll let it happen. We'll let
Oh,
it happen.
okay.
Why don't we start over?
I know that probably wasn't technically
Well,
correct.
But I didn't like the added stipulation, so let's go ahead and start over.
Okay, then we won't do that.
An invocation for the pledge and the pledge leads by Mr. McMillan.
But you should have taken care of that.
You don't want to start that far back.
I'll just make a motion to overturn planning and
I
zoning.
would second that motion.
Stipulation with the west side.
Hey, he didn't want me to do that together. You do the fence.
Man, this is.
You had a
You got a
stipulation.
motion, second, have discussion? Certainly. Would you have any problem with the fence just on the west side and leave the other tree line as your barrier?
Oh, yes, sir. I'm
That's
perfect
good with
with
that?
that.
I would like,
Mr.
if you
Mayor,
wouldn't mind adding that as your stipulation to that motion.
Can we get Mr. Crane to comment on that?
Yes, please, Mr. Crane.
Thank you. The gentleman hasn't shown on his site plan that he has a buffer along here. So we don't know at this point in time whether he does or does not, unless he has a survey or unless he shows that on his plan. And so that's why we suggested a fence, because we don't know if those trees are his or not. He didn't provide a survey to show that. Now, if he has a survey that shows that he has a tree line that's on his property, and it's sufficient enough to provide a screen, I would say, okay, that's okay, that you could do. But if you look at his site plan, there's nothing on here that reflects that.
Could we just remove that and then leave that up to Wes and his staff to determine whether it needs to be there or not? Mr. Gabb? Okay.
I'm thinking how it would be difficult to word that. The other problem, that we've done this in other developments, is with the neighboring properties, we do want to always have a guarantee that there will be a fence or a buffer. It could certainly be added a stipulation that with the direction of the director of planning, that a fence needs to be erected. That could be this. You could make that the stipulation regarding the fencing. In the director's discretion, a fence will be required.
Okay.
And I'd like Wes to comment, make sure he's okay with that as well.
Mr. Crane.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Crane only talk.
Yes, sir, I'm okay with that, but I'm telling you, what I'm gonna require is that he show us, either a survey that shows that he owns the screen, you know, and what that is, so I can determine that it's sufficient enough to do it, to screen it.
Thank you, Mr. Crane. Mr. McMillan.
Do you own the property around it? You feel like you could get Mr. Crane his information?
Yes, sir. They call, Miss Amanda Butler called me to come up there and update the buffer zone on my site plan. And I was working a bunch of overtime, and I couldn't get over there in time. And my kid's mama live in Texas now, so I'm having to, on my days off, I'm with them. They're living with me. So I couldn't get to the zoning board to draw on their piece of paper their site plan to show that there is a buffer zone of trees there. And these are virgin, this is all virgin, because the land to the south of me is so undivided, God himself probably couldn't straighten it out. And to the north of me, that is really undivided too. So none of the land, I mean, the trees they're never been touched. Even the guy, when he come out to cut the timber, he wouldn't touch it. He said, because there's so much that's on you and that maybe not on you. He said, I'm not going to cut it. So, I mean, a privacy fence, how far would you want to go east with a privacy fence? Even if I put a privacy fence, say down the north and the south going east, how far would you go down? Because you would still, I just don't, I mean, I'm not going to go be to the point where, look, you're not going to do your RV park if you don't do his street. I'm going to do his fence. I'm not going to go there. But I'm just trying to figure out, and that's a lot of extra money. If you're talking about 200 more foot on each side, well, for one, I'd have to start cutting trees down. And you're talking a lot of money. I'm going to spend a bunch on this west side to make sure Mr. and Miss Walker have privacy. They are my main concern. They're 80-something years old, and they gave me their blessings, and I respect theirs more than the north and south.
Thank you. I'd like to go to our legal counsel for some coaching. I think you may be able to word this out properly.
If you wish to make a amended stipulation regarding the fencing, you could move to amend the original motion to amend stipulation number 4, that fencing be required at the direction of the director.
That's exactly what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Well, she told me also that there could be some trees that could be planted or something like that. I mean, I'm not against it. Y'all want more trees, I'll put more trees.
Mr. Crane?
I'm good.
Okay. So we have a motion.
And I can read it if we need to, Mr. President.
Please do that.
Right now, we have a motion to amend the original motion to amend stipulation number 4, the fencing be required at the direction of the director. And we need to vote on that amendment to the main motion.
Thank you. Mr. Fornell.
In our conversations the other day, we talked about the need for this to be an RV park.
Yes, sir.
And and we spoke about the fact that you can have mobile homes in an RV park.
Yes, sir.
And you agree to the fact that you never want to have a mobile home there. You don't want this thing to convert into a very long-term mobile home park eventually.
Got two of them I'm dealing with right now.
And I
That
want
I
to
gotta
make
get
a
rid of.
motion as well. I don't know if it's proper to do that yet. We'll wait till the other one clears, but I'm going to make a motion that we exclude mobile homes from this.
So I would ask that we vote first.
If there's no further discussion,
If there's no further discussion, I'd ask that we vote on the motion with the stipulation
motion to amend stipulation number 4.
to amend stipulation number 4. Any objection?
You didn't think you was gonna get done with this that easy? Come on. Just one more, just to clarify.
No.
It can be the fence or it could be a buffer, whatever Mr. Crane decides. If he decides through proof that there's enough of a buffer there, then he'll go that way, and if not, then he's gonna require the fence. Right? That's what's gonna happen.
Yes, sir. I'm gonna be able to determine whether he needs an actual fence. Dog ear
Provide you a
fence or whatever.
survey, or your people will go out
Or
and
go
look
out
at it,
there
what have
and
you.
look at it and see if he's got enough vegetation out there that will consistently maintain a screen.
That he owns.
He
And has
owns.
control over.
That's
Right.
correct, because
Okay.
if it's on the other property, then cut it.
Right.
Thank you, Mr.
I just wanted to
Crane.
make sure.
Mr. Landry.
Thank you, Mr. President.
The discussion is longer than the fence we're asking for.
Oh, y'all need to speak with the lady that's here for it. That's-
Yes, I'm just trying to get
Okay,
through
I'm
everybody up here, but
I'm sorry.
We may not need it.
we may not need it.
Okay, that's a good thing.
So, no further objection? Any further objection? Any objection? Motion carries to amend
Stipulation number 4.
stipulation number 4. Now, Mr. Farmer.
Thank you, Mr. President. I make a motion that we exclude mobile homes from this park forever.
Second.
Got a motion by Mr. Farnham to exclude mobile home parks by Mr. Farnham, and a second by Mr. Landry. Any discussion? Any objection? Yes, sir.
Sorry, just clarify, you said mobile home parks, you didn't mean
No,
mobile homes?
Mobile homes.
Excuse me.
From the park.
From the parks.
Thank you.
Any discussion? Any objection? That stipulation carries. So we're done with that. Are we? So that's done with that.
Now you've got main motion to take care of that has been amended.
Say again?
The main motion now has to be voted on.
It's the main motion.
We got a motion to overturn.
If you'd like me to, I can try to read it and we can make sure we're on the same page.
That'd be great.
Right now, the vote will be a motion to overturn to thereby allow rezoning with the stipulations, including amended stipulation number 4, the fence to be required at the direction of the director, and the added stipulation of number 7 to not allow mobile homes.
So we have a motion.
I make a motion. We accept that?
Got a motion by Mr. Trimming.
Nobody's saying.
Second by Mr. Abshire. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. Item number 12, consideration of adopting a resolution approving issuance, sale, and delivery by the Calcasieu Parish Public Trust Authority of not to exceed $30 million of its multifamily housing revenue bonds. Got a motion by Mr. White and a second by Ms. Trimmy. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. Item 13, consideration of adopting a resolution ratifying Executive Order 2018-4 to revoke Executive Order 2018-03, which imposed a restriction on boat traffic along the Calcasieu River and English Bayou areas. Got a motion by Mr. Collins and a second by Mr. White. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. Item 14, consideration of adopting a resolution approving an agreement with the Louisiana Office of Community Development for FEMA Public Assistance Non-Federal Share Match Program funding for 2016 severe storms and flooding events. I got a motion by Mr. Scott and a second by Ms. Mayo. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. Item 15, consideration of approving the following items as requested by the Office of Juvenile Justice Services. Bullet A, adopt a resolution approving the submittal of a continuation application for the Families in Need of Services Assistance Program. Bullet B, adopt a resolution approving an agreement for participation in the Title 4-E Federal Foster Care Reimbursement Program. Bullet C, adopt a resolution approving the submittal of a continuation grant application for a case manager and counseling services to assist victims of child abuse. I have a motion by Mr. McMillan and a second by Ms. Mayo. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. Item 16, consideration of the following items as submitted by the Human Services Department. Bullet A, adopt a resolution approving the FTA Title VI plan for the Calcasieu Parish Public Transit System. Bullet B, acknowledge the submittal of minutes of the Calcasieu Parish Human Services Advisory Board for the meetings held on August 22nd, 2017, September 26th, 2017, and December 19th, 2017. I have a motion by Mr. Guillory and a second by Mr. Scott. Any discussion? Any objection? Item carries. Consideration of authorizing the Parish Purchasing Agent to either, 1, advertise for bids, or 2, purchase utilizing state contract purchasing procedures for the purchase of a 2018 or newer fire apparatus tanker truck for use by Ward 3 Fire Protection District Number 2. I have a motion by Mr. Abshire and a second by Mr. Collins. Any discussion? Any objection? Item carries. Item 18, take appropriate action on bids and/or proposals received by the Parish Purchasing Agent for the following items. Bullet A, 1 chipper with trailer. B, automated external defibrillator equipment and services. C, 2 2018 or newer mid-size sport utility vehicles. D, 1 2018 or newer small sports utility vehicle, SUV. We got a motion by Mr. White and a second by Mr. Guidry.
Move to adjourn.
Any discussion? No. Any objection? Motion carries. Item 19. I never finished the 18, sir.
Okay. To adjourn. Can we now?
Stand adjourned.